Tim Vickery, the Legendinho, is of course in Rio to take any questions or comments you might have on football from that part of the world, and also from footballers from over there playing in our leagues as well. Good morning, Tim.
Welcome back, big man. Nice to have you back.
Good to be back. And the big wheel this week is not in his home territory of Kansas, but is in Seoul, Korea. Good morning, Big Wheel.
Good morning to you, Dotun. Good morning, Tim. You know, this is very strange for me because we've been doing the World Football Phone-In over 5 years now, and I've never done this with the sun out. But here in Seoul, South Korea, it's 5 after 10 in the morning. I'm getting on a plane in a few hours. I'm flying back to California. I'm doing a Major League Soccer match. I get 2 cracks at Saturday. You know, that's great about crossing the international date line. If this Saturday doesn't go that well for me, and I have every intention that it will be, I'm an optimist by nature, but I get another Saturday. So somewhere along the way on my second Saturday, I get to do a Major League Soccer match flying from South Korea, where I did a mixed martial arts event last night.
So despite being in Seoul, the Big Wheel is not taking questions on football in Asia. No, we've got the Ronaldinho to take care of that. Ronaldinho is in Australia, our Australian and Asian football correspondent. Hey, what's with all the laughter?
I love that. That was such a great suggestion, Ronaldinho. Whoever did that is an official friend of this program for a long, long time.
Everybody on this show has a Brazilian football shirt name. We've got the Big Wheel, Sean Wheelock. He takes care of any questions you might have on Major League Soccer and North American football, or indeed on players from over there playing in our leagues as well. And the Ronaldinho, well, he's the Ronaldinho. That's his name. What can I say? Aidan Norman, good to have you with us.
Hello, Dotun, and hello up all-nighters all over the world. It's good to be here.
And I'm glad you're not trying to complain about the name, because the more you complain, the more it sticks, apparently.
Oh, look, I've had about 71 emails regarding Ronaldinho since I last spoken to you, so clearly it's taken off in this part of the world.
Absolutely. And Aidan's here to answer any questions or comments you might have on football in Australia and in Asia, or indeed on players from over there playing in our leagues as well. So pick up the phone, give us a call. It's North and South America, Asia and Australia. 0500 909 693 is the number to call. You could text them on 85058 or email upallnight@bbc.co.uk. Let's take a call straight away from Bura in Sheffield. Is it Bura?
Yes, hi there, Don. Good morning.
Good morning, and good to speak to you.
You too. Missed you last week.
Well, I'm back where I'm supposed to. I've got to say, Ben kept the seat very warm for me, but let's not get into that now. You got a question for Tim?
I have 2 questions, actually. I told your researcher that I had one for Andy Brassel, but seeing as he's not on the show, I'll ask the Ronaldinho one, if it's all right.
Although I see that the question for Andy Brassel was on Arsenal, I think I could probably answer that one.
No, I'll ask the Australia guy one.
Okay.
It's all right. The first one's to Tim. It's about the recent change in the shift of power from Brazil towards Argentina. And I thought that was demonstrated in the recent Olympics and their 3-0 loss. And I thought...
Can I answer the one about Arsenal as well? They're rubbish. Can I answer that one? Well, you know, I feel a little bit sorry for Dunga, you know, the Brazil coach, who's fighting for his life now as Brazil coach. World Cup qualification next week, next Sunday. Brazil take a very, very difficult trip to Chile in Santiago, where Chile are always strong. And if they lose that one, then it's difficult to see him holding on to his job, I think. The reason I feel sorry for him is I think that Brazil's problems go much deeper than just Dunga. Just a few years ago, Brazil were world champions at senior level, at under-20 level, and at under-17 level. The last time around, in all 3 competitions, they never got anywhere near winning the title at either senior level, under-20 or under-17, and they didn't play a lot of good football on the way either. And all of that was before Dunga took over. So to blame him exclusively, you know, a novice coach, to blame him exclusively for Brazil's problems, I think is very, very harsh. Brazil have had a model of play ever since they won the World Cup in '94 with Dunga as captain. It's a model of play that served them very, very well, with the 2 central midfielders taking on more defensive responsibilities, the fullbacks bombing forward. I think that one of the problems is that model is now starting to look old. That the quality of the central midfield players has declined over the years. And another thing which I think is absolutely crucial is that during this time of success, when they won the World Cup in '94 and in 2002, they had a huge advantage over many countries in terms of their physical preparation. Brazil reckons that their physical preparation specialists are the best in the world. And after kind of the turn of the 80s and 90s, Brazil's economy opened up, and they were able to import equipment from the United States that allowed them to measure in a more sophisticated way the physical performance of their players, and then accordingly draw up a training schedule individually for each player's needs. And if you look at the 2002 World Cup, everyone who played the European season was on their knees in that competition, with the exception of Brazil, who were still full of running. And what's happened subsequently, obviously, success is always copied. So, some of Brazil's physical preparation specialists are now working in Europe with European clubs, and their methods begin to get circulated, and others pick up on them. So that, I think, is one of the problems that Brazil have. It's kind of end of the model. That they need a rethink, I think, and it's asking an awful lot of a novice coach like Dunga to take them through this transition period.
Bura's question was quite succinct. Is it? Are we witnessing the shift of power in South America from Brazil to Argentina?
Well, we are, I think, because Brazil have been on the way down. As I've been trying to outline. Now, Argentina have invested very, very heavily in their youth development work. Now, it's clearly a problem for both Brazil and Argentina that so many players go abroad so early. So what Argentina have done, in order to kind of, if you like, preserve the identity of their football, is use the youth level, use the under-17, under-20s, use them as a kind of, like a university, if you like, to almost indoctrinate their players with the Argentinian way of playing football. That's one of the reasons that Riquelme was one of the overage players at the Olympics, that they're almost like using him as a school. They're using him for the younger generation to look at and learn and say, this is Argentinian football. The thing that Argentina still lack, and this process that Border has brought up, it can't be fully confirmed until Argentina have won a senior title. Now, the last time they won a senior title was the Copa America in 1993. That's a long, long time ago now for Argentina. That's 15 years, and that's a lot of frustration built up in that 15 years. So this process, I think Border has correctly identified, we can't really say that it's completely ratified until Argentina have put that right and won a title at senior level. They've won 5 of the last 7 World Youth Cups for players of 20 and under. They've won the last 2 Olympic gold medals, so they're on the right tracks with the youth work, but this process will be ratified once they win again at senior level.
So, Bura, the second part of your question was to Aidan, the Ronaldinho. Go ahead.
Yes, it was about the move of Harry Kewell from Liverpool to Galatasaray, and I'm a Turkish football supporter, so I've been really impressed by his start to the season. I mean, he scored 2 goals in his first 3 starts, and he's also hit the post in his last game. And I think he's a man on a mission, and he's trying to prove something to, I think, everyone in the world and who's involved in football, because he's seen as a man who's really injured all the time, and who's a bit of a duff player, really. And I wanted to ask the Ronaldinho's opinion on this.
Well, I'm not sure what that's got to do with Arsenal, but certainly Harry's career in Turkey has got off to a great start. It's probably a league that suits him at his stage. He's 29 now, almost 30, has had a history of injury, and I note with interest that he's brought his own personal physio over there, a guy called Les Gellis, who worked at Liverpool with him. So, yeah, look, I agree, it's going to be a new start for Harry, and he's got a lot to prove. And also the fact that he's playing in a country very much closer to the Asian Confederation, which makes it a lot easier for Harry to be a part of the coming World Cup campaign rather than doing all of the travel that he was doing before. So, for example, we're playing in the UAE, we're playing in Dubai, we're playing in Uzbekistan. Not so far for him to travel for these World Cup qualifiers, which a lot of them are on non-FIFA dates. So from a national team point of view, it's a boon. From a personal point of view, well, he scored on debut as well in an easy victory for Galatasaray. So it's caused a lot of interest over here. And of course, he's not the only Australian playing in Turkey, with Brice Gite and Michael Petrovic also playing over there.
This text from Davey in Glasgow. What can the big wheel tell us about Maurice Edu that Rangers have just signed from Toronto FC? Being a Celtic fan, I'm hoping you're going to say he's a bit of a dud.
I'm afraid afraid I'm not going to. Maurice Adu is, I think, the future for the United States as the holding midfielder once Pablo Mastroeni ends a very, very good career. Maurice Adu, last year, his first year as a professional with Toronto FC, was awarded the Major League Soccer First-Year Player of the Year, what's called the Rookie of the Year award in MLS. I had a chance to see him during his university career at University of Maryland, and even when he was 19 years old playing at that collegiate level, I knew that he was something special. It's a very good move for him. Toronto FC, their manager, John Carver, their director of football, the former Scotland international, Rangers and Celtic striker Mo Johnston, did not want to part with Maurice Adu, but they saw this as not only a way to make cash and to get an infusion of money, and Major League Soccer saw that as well because, of course, in MLS they own the contracts, but also a chance to give Maurice Adu a real opportunity to shine. This is someone who you're going to hear a lot from at the club level, at the international level. He is a really talented, tidy footballer. He can play as a true holding midfielder. That's really his future for the United States. He can also push forward. He's not a classic old-fashioned number 10, but he can definitely distribute. In Toronto FC in their midfield, he played just above the Welsh international Carl Robinson. Robinson was really the ball winner, the real true defensive midfielder, the old-fashioned number 6. Adu would step up. He would make the short, smart passes. He can score. He can push forward. He is really a nice player. So, no, I'm afraid I'm not going to say he's a dud. Actually, I think he's probably one of the 3 best young American footballers right now.
So there you have it, our 3 pundits this morning. The Big Wheel, Sean Wheelock, in Seoul to take your questions and comments on football in North America, Major League Soccer. Pick up the phone, give him a call on 0500 909 693 to talk US soccer, or indeed players from over there playing in our leagues as well. We've got the Legendinho, who's in Rio, to take any questions or comments you might have on South American football from the whole continent of South America. Pick up the phone and talk to him. Indeed, on players from over there as well. You can have comments or questions for him on 0500 909 693. And the Ronald Dingo is down under, taking your questions and comments on football in Australia and also in South America. We also know him by the name of Aidan Ormond. Call him what you will. A love child has many names. Cleo, it's true. Cleo in Aldershot in Hampshire. Good morning.
Good morning. I've missed the show for the last 2 weeks.
And I should tell people, Cleo, that you've got a Brazilian shirt name of your own. You're the Cleo the Book.
Thank you very much, Dotun. Good morning, gentlemen. I've got a question for Sean and a question for Tim. Question for Sean, it's about a young man called Jonathan Guzman. He's Canadian. He's got an older brother, Julian, who I believe is the only Canadian to play for a La Liga team, and he scored a cracking goal against Brazil in their friendly earlier on this year. But his younger brother's only 20, and my boss, Mr. Wenger, is very interested in the young midfielder. And for Tim, the Argentinian team picked a couple of Newcastle players. What does he think of that?
Cleo, if you'd like me to go... Go ahead,
yeah,
Tim,
Go on, Sean.
Cleo, first off, it's always really nice to hear from you. The Guzman brothers are very, very talented. Experience in Spain, as you were saying, experience in the Dutch Eredivisie. These are footballers that Canada likes a lot. Now, it's interesting that they're talking about Arsene Wenger, getting a look at them. You know, Canadian footballers have had success in Europe. They've had success certainly in England, in the Premier League. It's something that you don't see a lot of with Canadian football, but Canadian football is certainly emerging. These are young players that have been talked about for the last 5 years. And now I think the focus, because Toronto FC has provided Canada with their only, and I mean their only first division side, because remember, Canada as a nation does not have their own top-flight football league, so Toronto FC is their only top-flight club playing in Major League Soccer. You're starting to see an outlet now. You're starting to see a bit of a focus. Toronto FC would love to have both of the Guzmans. That's probably not going to happen, but both are very, very talented young footballers.
The 2 Argentinians at Newcastle, Coloccini is a centre-back, can also play the holding role in midfield, but not particularly well. I think he really is a centre-back. Perhaps suffered from an inflated reputation earlier in his career and went to Milan very, very early. It didn't really work out. By no means the quickest centre-back around, and one who I'm sure will pick up a few yellow cards and perhaps even the odd red before the end of the season, because he's aggressive. Not a world-beating centre-back, I don't think, but one who can do a solid job. The other one, Jonas Gutierrez, is one of those players who's done better, I think, in European football than he did in his native Argentina. Had some terrific seasons with Mallorca in Spain that got him into the Argentina side, and played very well recently in the 0-0 draw against Brazil in World Cup qualification, and have kept him in the squad, and obviously earned him this move to Newcastle. He's right-footed, but usually plays left flank. Big, strong, long striding, really strong runner. Terrific lung power. Can get up and down. Will be direct. I don't think he's particularly tricky. I think his stride is too long to beat, say, 3 players in a space of 5 metres or something like that. But a strong running player, the kind of player you can imagine doing well in the Premiership.
Cleo, is that good for you?
Yes, that's good for me.
Incidentally, because of you Gooners, we've become a dual heritage family.
Oh, yes. Mr. Adebayo, number 25.
Look, we were a North London, Tottenham side of things family, or at the very least Barnet. But now my missus is insisting that my daughters go to the other side of North London. What?
Dotun, if she didn't sing like an angel, that's grounds for divorce, isn't it?
Look, I'm ready to divorce. No, Cleo. No, you know what? I love the Gooners. Let me just say that. So I only wind you lot up.
I know you do. It's a very, very promising ladies' side. Very
hope so.
Excellent. You can't head and shoulders above the rest of the league.
Listen,
they won the league. They won the cup last year. The season before last, they won the quadruple.
Do you know, we need to do a ladies' football all-nighter at some point, football special, and I hope you'll be one of our pundits at that point, Cleo.
Yes, I will. I'm very pleased to be.
Good to have you with us. Thanks very much. 0500 909 693. A question for our Australian football correspondent, says Alan in Glasgow. My club, Glasgow Celtic's top scorer from last season, Scott McDonald, has had a poor start for the season. He looks unfit and slow and hasn't scored for either Celtic or Australia. In fact, he's never scored for Australia. Has this been commented at all? Has anybody noticed this in his homeland? Because it's glaringly obvious to us in Glasgow. Also, does anybody amongst the panellists know of any decent left full-backs we can sign? So, let's stick to the question about Scott McDonald, though, first of all. Ronaldinho.
Well, with Scott McDonald, he's been on fire for the last 2 or 3 years. He began at Motherwell. He was originally at Southampton, where he basically didn't make it. Moved to Motherwell under Terry Butcher. Scored a bag full of goals. Was signed by Celtic, and last season was I think their top goal scorer. He's injured at the moment, but he's just coming back from injury. It doesn't look like he will play for Australia against Holland on September 6th, but national coach Pim Verbeek is hopeful that he'll be joining the national team for the World Cup qualifier against Uzbekistan on September 10. As for his goals, well, it's very difficult. He's just moved into the national team over the last year or so, and we have Mark Viduka up front, we have Harry Kewell, we have Marco Bresciano just behind him, so he is very much the next generation of scorers, so he hasn't played a lot in the national team and to get the opportunity to score regularly.
0500 909 693. Imran in Bradford, good morning.
Good morning, Dotun. How are you doing?
I'm very well, thanks very much, mate. How about you?
Yeah, very well, thank you, Dotun. Yeah, Dotun, I got a question for Tim. Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead.
It's about Deco. We were told this guy was washed up, and Luis Felipe Scolari has bought him here. Obviously, he knows the lad well, and looks like Robinho is going to be coming. I don't think they're going to get Kaká, but how impressed have you been, Tim? Watching him in the first couple of games.
Deco is Portuguese, though, rather than Brazilian.
He's Brazilian-born.
Ah, okay.
Brazilian-born,
Well, that's fair enough, then.
And what a shame for Brazil, really, that, he didn't really have much of a career here. He's one of those who has made his entire career in Europe. Perhaps the move was the best thing that could have happened to him, and certainly to Chelsea. I didn't see the Wigan game, but I saw the first game. I was still in England at the time, against Portsmouth. And he had an absolutely terrific game, didn't he? And he kind of belied all of that stuff, because I was hearing stuff during last season about that he'd become a negative influence at Barcelona and he had problems off the field. Perhaps he was drinking too much. But he gave Chelsea so many more options and just seemed to have fitted in very, very well. Now, the latest on the Robinho thing, I think, is it's looking a little bit less likely now. I just wonder if Robinho comes in, that might create just a little bit of a problem of man management for Scolari, because then he's got a clique building up there, isn't he, of Brazilians, a kind of Portuguese-speaking clique Is that going to work? It's a problem that Scolari's never faced before, really. And when he was a club coach in Brazil, he didn't really have too many foreign players. He had a couple of Paraguayans when he was at Grêmio. But the Spanish language is much closer to the Portuguese language, easier to knit them all together. Now, with Scolari having a multinational, multicultural squad, I think one of the things that could be hardest when players come in who are clearly the manager's favourites and speak the manager's language. And Louis van Gaal, the Dutchman, had problems with this at Barcelona. I know there's Alex and Belletti there also at Chelsea who are also Brazilians. But I just wonder, if you get Deco and Robinho there both speaking the manager's language, is that going to put some noses out of joint? Is that going to put Joe Cole's nose out of joint, for example? Obviously, Deco, he's smoothed over any problems in that regard so far because he's played so well. And if you play well, the other players get win bonuses, you're accepted very, very easily. But I think if the Robinho thing does come off, then that really will be a test for Scolari's man management, trying to keep everyone happy.
Yeah, Tim, sorry, don't you think, Tim, that the manager, he looks a big personality, and I think that, he's been given, a script, in terms of how they should play, and he knows what he needs to do. But I think if you're going to bring in top players, and, obviously, I think you bring in the best, and whether they're from Spain, whether they're from Africa, if he gets that team gelling, and looking at the early game against Portsmouth, I looked at his ability, Tim, and it's frightening because they look a completely different team. And I think he'll be one of the players of the season. Whether they actually beat Bordeaux and Roma, I'm not so sure, because I think Benzema will give Terry the runaround. But, I think he's going to be one of the players of the season, Tim. I really think Deco is going to light up the Premiership.
What fascinated me about that Chelsea debut game was the different role that the fullbacks have now. I saw Ashley Cole under Mourinho, and he hardly crossed the halfway line on the occasions that I saw him. And you thought, well, he's not really playing his natural game. You wonder why he's left Arsenal. But now Scolari is in charge. It's more Brazilian-style fullbacks with Bosinga on one side pushing up, Ashley Cole on the other side pushing up, and Obi Mikel having to drop a little bit deeper to sit. Now, obviously, other sides have watched that. So that'll be something to watch for over the season for Chelsea. If they're going to commit the fullbacks more, are the opposition going to try and get the ball behind in that space that the fullbacks leave? Are the opposition trying to get the ball behind those fullbacks quicker and cause them problems that way? It's going to be an absolutely fascinating season, Imran.
Yeah, Imran, thanks a lot for the call. And also, you can send any questions to Tim anytime via his weekly South American football column on the BBC Sport website, 0500 909 693. Talk to us, though, about football in North, South America, and also over here, players from over there playing in our leagues, or indeed on Australian and Asian football as well. Pick up the phone and give us a call. Nick in London says, to the USA guy, I guess that's you, Big Wheel, what do you know about the young striker Josie Altidore? Will he come to the Premier League or not?
Oh, I think so, and he doesn't know my name, which tells me he probably doesn't listen to this program a lot, but those are the listeners who do know my name and do listen to this program all the time know that I've been talking about Josie Altidore for the last 18 months, and I've been talking about him as someone who is just built almost in the laboratory, his physique to play Premiership football, to be a target man, to be a striker. He's moved from New York Red Bulls and Major League Soccer to Villarreal in Spain's La Liga. That's unique because Americans just simply do not go and play football in Spain. Ante Razov did it in the Spanish second division, but it's been few and far between. He is very good. He was part of the U.S. Olympic squad. He's been in the Under-20 World Cup for the United States. He's on the fringe now of being in the full senior squad for the United States. I imagine he's going to get some appearances during this qualification campaign. If the United States can reach World Cup 2010, I think Josie Altidore has a very good shot, not an excellent shot, but a very good shot of being part of that 23-man squad. He's big, he's strong. At just 18 years old, he's still getting bigger and stronger and faster and better. He's very good on the air. He's in the air. He's very good with his feet, and he's physically gifted. When I first met him, he was 17 years old, and it was like, are you kidding me? He looks like he's about 35. He is so physically fit and strong, and he's very mature. Don, you'll know the running joke we've had on this program for some time is he's having Freddie Adu's career. Josie Altidore is the son of Haitian immigrants, grew up very quietly in New York, played club football there, did not get a lot of attention, was drafted in Major League Soccer, went to New York Red Bulls, and all of a sudden at 16 years old, 17 years old, started banging in goals, and people paid a lot of attention, whereas Freddie Adu is now at AS Monaco, he's having a nice career, but he's certainly not the goal-scoring world-class phenom that he was tapped to be at 12, 13, and 14 years old. Josie Altidore is someone who can go to the Premier League, and I think without a stretch of the imagination could be someone who could score 10, 12, 15 goals.
Tim in Didsbury, good morning.
Yeah, good morning. Hi, fellas. I'd like to ask Legendinho about this player called Thiago Neves, who plays for Fluminense in Brazil. He's a midfielder and has been linked with City, and he's also been linked with Hamburg and Atletico Madrid. I'd like to know if you can tell me a bit about him, and if he's any good, and what are City's chances of getting him. Also, I'd like to know about Ronaldo, the original Ronaldo, if you like, who played for Real Madrid, Inter, who currently plays for AC Milan but is injured at the moment. He's been linked with Manchester City as well. I'd like to know if there's any truth in these rumours.
Yeah, well, I think City are interested. And he doesn't play for anyone at the moment because Milan rips up his contract.
Right, okay.
He's coming back from this latest in a long line of very serious knee injuries.
Right.
And really, at the moment, we don't know if he's going to be able to make it back. On his 32 next month, he's been through so many knee problems. At the moment, whether he's going to be able to continue to play at top level, even he doesn't know. And he's doing physiotherapy work in Spain. Man City have said that they're interested. The transfer window thing doesn't apply to him because he hasn't got a club at the moment. So there's another few weeks where this deal could come through, or City could just wait and see if he's going to come good. Yeah. Now, and if he does get himself fit, I think it might be an excellent move for him. And the plan was really, he'd always talked about moving back to Rio to finish his career with Flamengo, the club that he supported as a boy. Yeah. But then that incident that he had a few months ago with the ladies of the night who turned out not to be ladies, that's created a difficult environment for him here in Rio. If he does come back, the supporters of the rival clubs will never let him forget what he got up to that night. So I think the idea of hiding and going to Man City and still playing top-class European football, that would be attractive, but we don't know if he's going to be fit enough to do it. Yeah. Thiago Neves, as I understand it now, the chances of Man City getting him are zero because he's just signed or is set to sign for Hamburg. Yeah. So it looks like that's a move that's not going to go through. I don't think City would have got a work permit for him anyway. He's a left-footed attacking midfielder, was with the Brazil squad in the Olympics, strikes the ball very, very well indeed. He's got a lovely left foot on him, 23 years of age. The doubt about him always, I think, is his temperament. He comes from quite a troubled background. I think he's a little bit of a wild child off the field. And in that Olympic semi-final, where Brazil were beaten 3-0 by Argentina, he came on as a sub and got himself sent off for a kind of petulant through the back of Mascherano foul. That might have pleased Man City supporters seeing him do a Liverpool player, but did rather show the brittle side of his temperament. So I don't think that's going to happen. It looks like he's going to go to Hamburg. Ronaldo, we'll have to wait and see.
Okay, thanks a lot. Cheers.
Yeah, Tim, thanks a lot for that. 0500 909 693 is our number if you'd like to join us for the World Football Phone-In this morning. Now, whilst Brazilian fans might not let Ronaldo forget about the ladies of the night who weren't ladies, Up All Night listeners won't let the big wheel forget his prediction about David Beckham. No way is David Beckham coming to Major League Soccer, was the prediction a couple of years back. And Tony...
Don, I think there was an asterisk on that. I think I said immediately. I was wrong. Don't get me wrong. I was definitely wrong. That was my mistake. But I said that he would eventually come.
An asterisk? You think you can hear an asterisk on air?
Sure, I think it's a certain sound.
Anyway.
I thought that he would come, just not when he did. So I guess I was wrong.
But Tony in Brentwood says, what price then on David Beckham coming back to the UK now that Newcastle need a winger?
I simply don't think that that's going to happen. You know, David Beckham is...
That's exactly what you said the last time.
In the second year. I have no credibility.
Is there an asterisk on that one?
I'm pretty sure. I think there's a package deal. Beckham and Raphael Scheidt both going to Newcastle. If I'm not mistaken,
believe me.
He's trying to spread
Don't worry, Sean. You don't need to go there. There is a question about Raphael Scheidt. We'll come on to that in just a moment or two. Don't worry about that. You know our listeners have long memories. But there are a couple of other questions for you, Sean. Are commentators in the US still saying that Darren Huckabee came from Norfolk City in northeast England?
Picking on my brethren, Yes, there's all sorts of nice, fun pronunciations. I'm actually seeing Darren Huckerby, this match that I'm doing in my second Saturday when I cross the international date line. It'll be my first chance to see Darren Huckerby in person. His side, San Jose Earthquakes, are home to Kansas City Wizards. So, yeah, I know a lot of people have fun with American commentators. You know, I think I have this really strong Midwestern American accent, and yet people in America say that, oh, I sound so British all the time with my terminology, which I just find that baffling. I don't think I sound British to anyone who's listening to this program in the UK.
And this is from Tonto. Ask the big wheel if he knows anything about St. Louis getting an MLS franchise. I've heard an English businessman called Jeff Sheard is behind it.
Yes, there's certainly truth to that rumor. Now, this is someone who I know very well who's launching the bid for St. Louis, who's an American, a former lawyer named Jeff Cooper, who actually played football at a very high level at the university level. He actually faced at the senior school level, what we call high school level, Brian McBride, the former Fulham player, the former U.S. international, now in Chicago Fire, was on the same pitch in Illinois when they were both high school students facing off with Brian McBride. He tells me that in a certain match he whacked Brian McBride with about 40 elbows and still couldn't stop him from scoring. But Jeff Cooper is working very hard to secure a bid for Major League Soccer to get an expansion side. MLS has said that they want to keep growing. They want to get to at least 18 clubs. Next year, Seattle comes in. That will be 15. Philadelphia, the year after that, becomes 16. They want to go to 18, possibly 20, maybe even 22. I don't know what FIFA will say about that, but Major League Soccer has the opportunity still to go into a number of cities aside from St. Louis. They've talked to Las Vegas, they've talked to Montreal, they've talked to Vancouver, they've talked to Atlanta. St. Louis, for me, I think is the best opportunity. They're going to build a beautiful soccer-specific ground which will seat close to 19,000, just about 8 miles outside of downtown. It's in the heart of the country, and that's a real football country. When I grew up in Kansas City, St. Louis is about a 4-hour drive away, which is close by American terms. We always thought of St. Louis as Soccer Town, USA. It was where football was really born in this country, where you had the most passion, and it's just a matter of taking an owner with vision and trying to build a ground. But I would say that they're definitely a leading contender to get into Major League Soccer in the next round of expansion. Isn't that kind of an odd concept, though, that you just expand clubs? It's not that you're promoted. It's like somebody, like Dotun, for instance, you said, you know what, I want to have a club. Let's put him, I don't know, let's put them somewhere. Where's an area in England that doesn't have a club? Let's just start a club and pay our $40 million, and we'll get into the Premier League.
Let's try a club in Finsbury Park. Dan's there. He's got a question for you. Although there is another...
there is a Finsbury Park club. The great Arsenal.
It's only a little club. It's not really in Finsbury Park, you know what I mean? It's not really in Finsbury Park, you know what I mean?
But we all support Arsenal in Finsbury Park.
Yeah, sure. I'm from Finsbury Park myself, mate. Fonthill Road. And I never supported them ever. So there you go.
Oh, well.
But you got a question? Fair enough. You got a question for Sean?
Oh, I was just wondering... in most areas of the world, football is a working-class sport mostly, but in soccer in America, it seems to have grown mostly in middle-class areas and does seem to be mostly white people who play it in youth areas. And I was wondering why that is and how they could change that.
Oh, that's great. You know, I can actually take up the rest of the program talking about this. I don't know if anyone wants to hear me go on about this topic for another hour and 12 minutes, but it's something near and dear to my heart. It's a disgrace, the fact that football has been seen as not just a middle-class sport, but actually an upper-class sport, is a very white sport, is a very suburban sport. I think the beauty of football, what attracted me to it first, why I make my living in it as a commentator, why I'm so passionate about the sport, it's a game of inclusion. No matter where you are in the world, you can speak the same language, and that is the language of football. Yet in the United States, there is still this barrier, it seems like. Now, for instance, where I live in Kansas City, there's a school district on another side of part of town, to the east of town, which is predominantly black. You cannot play football, soccer, in the senior school level. They just simply don't have the program. So you have all of these wonderful athletes that simply aren't exposed to it. They're never going to have the opportunity to kick a ball in any type of sanctioned opportunity. And if you can't do it through your school and the clubs are out of reach and there are no clubs around, you're just going to be bypassed by the sport. Hispanics make up the largest immigrant population in the United States, and yet they really seem to get left behind. If you look at Major League Soccer, if you look at the U.S. squad at the senior level, the under-23, the under-20s, the under-17s, they're mostly white. Where are all the Hispanics? And the answer is they play in their own ethnic leagues, and they're not funneled into the system. It's something that Major League Soccer has to do a better job of. It's something that the American FA, which is called the United States Soccer Federation, has to do a better job of. It has to be a game of inclusion. You know, there's that horrible term called soccer moms, which I just cringe when I hear that. Soccer moms is saying, oh, soccer is for people who drive these very big minivans and they live in these huge houses in the suburbs and they're very white and it's a very effeminate sport and, oh, it's going and playing and being non-competitive. And that to me is the antithesis of the spirit of football, the nature of football. So many people in America just do not believe that it's a game of the people. It's a working-class sport. I don't know why it's evolved to where it's seen as this upper-class sort of effete, effeminate sport. It drives me crazy. It's something that has to change. I will tell you that when America wins the World Cup, not if, but when America wins the World Cup, if that's 20 years or 50 years or 100 years, it will be because it's become inclusive. Whether you're white, black, Hispanic, Asian, it doesn't matter. You'll be kicking a football around.
Yeah. Well, you think if there's going to be an American world superstar, you think it'd probably be either Latino or African American. Just by, if you look at the world superstars, that's what most of them are.
You know, and I've been talking about two young players on this program. I've talked about Josie Altidore. Josie Altidore is black, but he's first-generation American. His parents are from Haiti. Freddie Adu is black. He's a U.S. citizen now, but he's been naturalized. He was born in Ghana. He has Ghanaian parents. Now, Eddie Johnson, who was at Fulham last year, who's now at Cardiff City, he grew up in Florida. His parents are American. He's not first or second generation, but that's the exception to the rule. There are thousands and thousands of 12-year-old Eddie Johnsons in the United States that never get the opportunity to kick a football.
Great athletes.
They're playing American. I'm sorry?
Great athletes, like you say. Josie Altidore's built like Usain Bolt.
Absolutely fantastic athletes. And to me, it's about exposing people to these sports when they're children. If they choose to play basketball or baseball or tennis or American football or ice hockey or they want to swim or do athletics, that's absolutely fine with me. But the fact that they're never exposed, it really bothers me that in my own city, I live in Kansas City, a city of 2 million people, and yet if you live in what's essentially called the black school district, you have no opportunity to play football. I find that criminal. It really is sad to me.
Dan, you lot have got Finsbury Park. I totally agree, but please, Tottenham High Street belongs to another club. You know what I mean? But although you spread your wings far and wide. And Nick, thanks a lot for pointing out to me that Oh Carolina was originally done by the Fox brothers and Count Ossie. Shame on me. You're absolutely right. 0500 909 693. Ronaldinho, I've got a question for you here from one of our listeners. It's generally about football, your side of the water. Generally, I've lost it, even though I was about to tell you about it. Do you mind waiting just a second for me to find it?
Yeah, no problem at all.
Okay, we'll take Will in Chester meanwhile. Will, good morning. First time caller as well. Good to have you on the show.
Yeah, cheers, mate. Big fan. I did have a question originally for is it Tim about Alexandre Pato, but as a Newcastle fan, I'm more interested in this. What was his name? Shite guy? Is it Shite?
Raphael Shite, yeah.
Raphael Shite, yeah.
Well, you can pass that one on to Tim as well. He's the expert on that one.
Oh, is he? Brilliant, yeah.
Well, has he been linked with Newcastle now?
Well, that's what you said, fella.
No, and 1,000 times no. He's in China. He came over. He was Celtic's biggest ever money buy at the time, which just kind of remind everyone. This was in the last decade when I made this mistake. Everyone, last decade when I thought he would be a success.
Last century, actually, Tim.
Yeah, well, yes, good point. He turned out to be an absolute disaster. Nothing went for him really. He had appendicitis and so on, and he had some injury problems. But it's something that I learned a stack from because I watched him in Brazil. He played for Brazil, and what had really caught my eye was that he sat deep and he passed well out of defence off either feet. Looked a big lad, and I thought this is going to be a top class defender. I don't know if you were listening. A couple of weeks ago, we did a marathon. We did a 4-hour one, and Craig Short was on, the former centre-back, and he was talking about the problems that a lot of foreign centre-backs have when they come to England, because they have to defend in different positions. They have to defend much higher up the field, and they're less protected than they are at home. And that was certainly the case at Rafael Scheidt. That's really when I learnt that lesson, because Scheidt in Brazil, he would defend so deep practically on top of his own goalkeeper. So his lack of pace wasn't exposed that much. Playing in British football, playing with Celtic, he's got to defend much higher up the field. The football's quicker, and he's been dragged into positions that he hasn't got the pace to recover from. And that deal was a disaster for Celtic. And he went back to Brazil, and he's had a reasonable career with big clubs. He played for Corinthians, for Atlético Mineiro. He was captain of Botafogo for a while, and then had one ankle injury, I think too many, and slowed up completely. And Botafogo got rid of him in the end, and he went off to China. But that was the real lesson I learned. And so often I think you learn more from your failures than you do from your successes. And the lesson I learned from that one is the big difficulty of bringing in centre-backs to British football, especially if they're slow and accustomed to taking a position much, much deeper. In British football, it's going to be very hard for them to adapt. And he's not the only one. And Rocky Jr. had a terrible, terrible spell with Leeds. And Rocky Jr. has got a World Cup winners medal. And that's not something that they give away in a sweetie shop. Not too many players have them, but he's got one. Played for Brazil in 2002, but really couldn't cut it with Leeds at all. So that was a lesson to be learnt. And no, I don't think Rafael Scheidt's going to be popping up at Newcastle in the near future.
Will in Chester, thanks very much for the call. This for you then, Aidan, from Joel in Victoria in Australia. He says, in Australia, a National Women's League has just been announced. The clubs in Australia are affiliated with male clubs. What's it like in your respective regions? I know Australia lost to Brazil in the quarterfinals of last year's World Cup in China. Just tell us, first of all, about this National Women's League being linked to the male clubs.
Well, we have an A-League in Australia, which, by the way, just as a side point, it's expanding 2 new franchises. It'll be a 10-team league next year. And each club now has their own women's team. So we have, it's called a W League, which is the women's league. And so each club, for example, Sydney FC, Newcastle Jets, Queensland Roar, has a women's team that will play in a smaller version of the A-League called the W League. As for football in this country, for women, it's booming. It's more popular than netball at junior level. And our women's Olympic team, they're called the Matildas, reached the quarterfinals of the Women's World Cup last year in China. And although they didn't qualify for the Olympics, it's one of those things where you can definitely say in 10 years' time, women's football will be much, much stronger than it is now. It's on the up in this country and across Asia too.
And talking about Asia, Kieran Mitchell wants to know if football has a real chance of succeeding in China at grassroots level. He's just read the excellent book Bamboo Goalposts, he says.
It's baffling why China isn't stronger at national team level. They qualified for the 2002 World Cup. Failed miserably in the last World Cup campaign, and they're out of the World Cup running now. You look at the players, Zheng Ji, the captain, Kubo, Han Peng, Li Weifeng, all these terrific players in the national team. Sun Jihai as well. You would imagine them to be a stronger national team, but I just sense that the football culture at the national team level certainly is not what it should be. I note that they were also coached by somebody who didn't speak their language. I watched them train a few months ago when they played against Australia in a World Cup qualifier, and they have the players speaking one language and the coaching staff speaking another. So there is definitely something wrong there with the national team level. But the Chinese Super League is quite strong, one of the top 4 in Asia.
Are they interested in developing it? Are they interested in bringing in foreign players, for example?
They are. They do bring foreign players in. The problem with the Chinese Super League is that it's basically run very poorly. There's been a lot of problems with referees. There's been a lot of problems with corruption. It's not run well. And when you have a domestic league that's not running well, it always hampers the development. They haven't done well in the Champions League, and they've underperformed at national team level. They do want to develop, and you'd think with 1.1 billion people, they'd be able to find a decent national team. But at the moment, they're struggling at the club level.
So it's football in Australia, in Asia, in North and South America for our World Football phone-in this morning. Another hour of the phone-in to go. Do join us, pick up the phone and give us a call on 0500 909 693. You can text our pundits on 85058 or email upallnight@bbc.co.uk. For you, Sean, from Sanj in Grim, Watford. In Grim, Watford, those are his words. That wasn't so much an asterisk as an addendum.